Hi Year 7, it's Mr. Ashley here, and we are now going to use what we learnt by looking at the source analysis continuum on the screen here and apply it to differing historical sources. And so in a moment, we are going to do source A together, describing the content of source A. We'll be unpacking the source, and then together we're going to write a response, a two-sentence response. And then we'll do the same for source B. And then after that, the video will end and you will do source C with your teacher in a joint construction project. And then we'll have you dive off the deep end and have a go at doing source D on your own. Now remember, we always just go back to the continuum, look at the samples to help us structure our own response. Now, when we're looking at this, always remember starting with content. And so when we look at content here, the two words that should come up are type of source and origin of source. So if we look here, you can always look at the image first and have a look at what you see there. But sometimes the image can be a little bit hard to understand, but we can see that we have some buildings, we have some people, and we have people on a boat, okay? There looks like there's some people up here on top of a hill. There's a lot going on. But as I said in the previous video, sometimes we are better off going here first to get a clear idea. And so what the source says is that source A is a wall fresco. A wall fresco is a wall painting from Akrotiri in Thera depicting a Minoan island city surrounded by another island in the background. And this source was created in the 17th century BC and is currently at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. So if you were listening to me read that, or you're following along in your head and you're saying to yourself, I have no idea what that was about, that's totally fine. Because we're not learning about this historical time period or this historical society. And so that would be really unclear. But we still can get from this information enough to know what type of source it is and the origin. So with type of source, we are always looking for a time period or a date. And we have one here, 17th century BC. And that is when it was created. So that's also going to help us with origin. But just from our previous lesson, when we learn about chronology, you should know that BC stands for before Christ. The historical term would be BCE, before Common Era, but that is referring to an ancient time period. So therefore, that makes this source a primary source. In regards to origin, we're looking for date it was made and who the author is. And so we already have the date circled here, 17th century BC, and we can jot that down, 17th century BC. Now, I would like you to copy what I'm doing as I do it. Your teacher might pause the video every now and then for you to keep up. But the whole point is that you will do this with source A and source B following me in the video so that you know how to do it for source C and source D. The next part's really important because we need to know who the author is. But sometimes when we look at sources, it is actually unclear or unknown. And so this is where you really want to be clear that you actually don't know. Don't try and make something up or say, oh, it's the author is the museum. What you need to be saying here is author unknown, because that's the most accurate thing you can write there. Okay, and so we have everything we need for our first sentence in the source analysis response. And the second sentence, we're just describing the content a little bit more, which would be simply from the information here. Okay, a Minoan island city surrounded by another island in the background. And that's what our second sentence would be about. So let's now put all of this into two sentences to answer the question, describe the content of source A. So we start with source A. Oh, my apology. Source A is a primary source and I'm going to copy the template up here where a double comma is used to add some extra information. Okay, so I'm going to say primary source, specifically a wall fresco. which again comes straight from the source. Created in the 17th century BC, but the author is unknown. Now, before we write the second sentence, let's just check over here from our planning if we cover everything here. So, source A is a primary source. We cover that. Specifically, a wall fresco created in the 17th century BC. Tick that off. But the author is unknown. And again, it's covered that. My apologies for jumping around. It's covered there. Very good. Now we need to add one more sentence that just describes the source, tells us what it's about. So, source A focuses on, and this is where we just grab it from here, a Minoan island city. Surrounded another island in the background. Okay, and that's all we need to be doing for this response. Okay. Source A is a primary source, specifically a wall fresco, created in the 17th century BC, but the author is unknown. Source A focuses on a Minoan island city surrounded by another island in the background. So hopefully the teacher can pause it here and you can copy that down just so you know and you can see what it should look like, how it should sound, and to see how you include all the key features of this response. So all we'll do is we'll move to the next one. And again, we can look at the image first and we can see that it looks like there's soldiers here all preparing to engage in warfare. They look like they're defending a port or a harbour. And then on the other side, we have boats and soldiers on boats ready to attack. And this is supported by the description. 19th century engraving depicting the Spartans defending the Spartan city of Methone against the Athenians. And that is depicting the Peloponnesian War in 431 BC. This is very important. There's two dates here, 19th century and 431 to 404 BC. So when we think about type and origin, it's very important. This is the focus. So this is what this depiction here is of this battle. But the actual time period that this source was made is in the 19th century. And if you ever see something without a date, like this one has BC, there's nothing here. It always refers to the Common Era, CEAD, which makes it a modern source. So it's a modern source depicting an ancient battle, which makes it a secondary source. And then that also helps us. Origin, we have 19th century. And an author, similar to source A, is unknown. So that gives us all of the information for the first sentence. And then the second sentence is it focuses on the Spartans defending the Spartan city of Methone against the Athenians. And then we're just going to put it together. So, source B is a secondary source. Specifically an engraving, and that's up here, created in the 19th century, but the author is unknown. Okay, let's read that over. Source B is a secondary source, specifically an engraving created in the 19th century, but the author is unknown. We have secondary source, tick. We have 19th century, tick. And we have author, unknown, tick. Then we can move on and say source B focuses on Spartans defending the Spartan city of Methone against the Athenians. Okay, so that is essentially how we are going to be unpacking historical sources to learn about the content of them, so type and origin, to be able to then answer a question like describe the content of source A, source B, whatever it may be. Now, from this, I'm going to get off this video in a moment, and you, with your teacher, will do a joint construction project doing source C together. You'll be unpacking the source here, okay? And then underneath here, there'll be a question on your page. You answer it in the lines. And then the challenge is for you to go up to source D and have a go on doing it in your own. I highly recommend have a go first. Don't put your hand up to ask for help straight away. Really sit with it and try your hardest on your own first. And if you get stuck, go back to the continuum and look at the sample response to look at the language they are using and applying it to your response as well. All the best, Year 7.